we saw you go over to Qatar. Is it correct to say you were arrested for what you did out there, and what happened?
I staged one-person protest outside the Qatar National Museum, and I was arrested and detained by Qatar police and state security, interrogated for an hour, and then they didn't really know what to do with me because protests are not allowed in Qatar. So they had to phone higher-ups, and eventually they told me I could go, providing I went to the airport, got on a plane, and left the country. I think that's only because I was a white Westerner with a British passport, only because of the intervention of the British Embassy, and only because in the run-up to the World Cup, the Qatar authorities didn't want any bad publicity. If I'd been a Qatari, I would now be doing time in prison.
Peter, how confident are you that members of the LGBT community are actually going to be safe if they are going to Qatar to watch football? And indeed, how would they be identified, and on what premise would they be arrested or harassed?
Well, the standard procedure in Qatar is anyone who is known to be gay or even suspected or perceived to be gay is liable to arrest and interrogation on the street, on the metro, or in a shopping mall. That's how bad it is. So LGBT plus fans will be at risk. Now, the Qatar authorities say they're going to adopt a live and let live attitude. But, you know, they've broken so many promises. Now, they haven't fulfilled their promises on better conditions for migrant workers, or done so only in part. They've just reneged on their promise to allow beer to be served and drunk in the stadiums and fan zones. And you just ask yourself, can we really trust these people? This is a police state. This is a dictatorship. I don't believe we can trust their assurances. So I am concerned about what might happen to LGBT plus fans.
While pointing out that you can still be executed if you're a Muslim man for being homosexual in Qatar, right? This is a brutal regime, but we kind of know what's going on out there, Peter. But you're doing a demonstration later on today, and as well as bringing further shame to the Qatari dictatorship, what do you hope comes out of this conversation about what's happening in the UK?
Well, today's protest outside the Qatar embassy in London at 1 o'clock is designed to further remind both Qatar and FIFA that Qatar should have never initially got the World Cup because it is a dictatorship which does not respect human rights. And in particular, FIFA promised that despite Qatar's having these, draconian anti-gay laws, no discrimination would be tolerated at the World Cup. Yet we know that there are 7 competing football teams, including from Qatar, where homosexuality is totally criminalized. And if a star footballer from any of those countries, including Qatar, was known to be gay or came out, he would be more likely to be jailed than be selected to play for his national team. Now that is discrimination. It's against FIFA rules, but FIFA is doing nothing about it.
As a Muslim country, we know that that's how they feel towards the gay community. We know this already, don't we? So has any of this really come as a surprise? And do you feel that FIFA actually should have had a much stronger hand in insisting on the way that all fans were treated when they came to the country?
Well, absolutely. And because we know that Qatar is a police state dictatorship, which depresses and suppresses and represses its own people's human rights, that's a very good reason why they should have never been given the World Cup in the first place. We have to say loud and clear that just because they've got the World Cup doesn't mean to say we shouldn't be discussing these issues. Now, you're right, it is a Muslim country, and, that's up to them. But Qatar is also a member of the United Nations. And through membership of the United Nations, it has signed up to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which says that every person is entitled to equal treatment and protection against discrimination. Clearly, Qatar is not living up to its own obligations under the Universal Declaration of Human Rights.
So, Peter, there has been evidence before that these attitudes exist against homosexuality amongst the Muslim community in the UK. What's your take on that?
Well, you know, the Muslim community in Britain is much more liberal than in Qatar. And, you know, it's increasingly the case that Muslim families are accepting their lesbian, gay, bisexual and transgender children. That's progress. You can't compare Muslim attitudes here to those in Qatar. They are completely worlds apart. And I'm really, really proud that so many Muslim people in Britain are increasingly endorsing and supporting LGBT plus human rights, even though they may personally believe that homosexuality is wrong. They don't believe the law should discriminate. That is progress.
Sorry, Peter, we've got in the studio our sports broadcaster, Aidan McGee. We are actually talking about a sporting event. And as we know, David Beckham and a number of other very high-profile sports people in this country are promoting not just the event, but also the country. What do you think that effect is going to have on their reputations once this sporting event is over?
Peter.
Have we got you, Peter? Sorry, I'm asking you, Peter, because we'll go to Aidan in a moment. As I say, we've got him because it is, of course, a sporting event. But I'm wondering what you, as someone who's been in the country, feels that the sort of sponsorship and the headlines that they're creating for this country is actually going to do to their reputations here at home.
Well, I think it's really shameful that celebrities are allowing themselves to be bought by the Qatar billions in order to put a positive spin on what is a sexist, homophobic and racist dictatorship. I mean, how can David Beckham, Robbie Williams and all these other big stars who are performing in Qatar, how can they have a clean conscience when they know what this regime is doing to people? I think it's going to cause them huge, huge damage. I mean, David Beckham was a great LGBT plus ally and icon, but no more. I mean, his reputation is really severely damaged.
Do you agree with that, Aidan?
Yeah, I do. I was asked this about maybe 6 or 7 weeks ago about David Beckham's involvement in the FIFA World Cup. Yes, he's played in World Cups. He has a huge standing within the game of football. He transcends the sport. But, you know, he's a very, very wealthy man. Yeah. I don't really understand why he took the money. I think there might be an underlying cause here. There's a bid to stay relevant because he's not really been involved in football in a mud on boots kind of sense, man scores goals kind of sense in the last kind of 15 years now, I'd say. Certainly not since he was on loan at AC Milan. But I think there might be an underlying cause, an ulterior motive. He's launching this football franchise in the States, in Miami. I think that he may be courting Qatari interest for some investment. That would be my estimation. I think it's certainly been suggested. It wouldn't be uncommon for one of the Gulf states to invest in a football club around the world. We've seen it with PSG in France. We've seen the Abu Dhabi group in England with Manchester City. The Saudis get involved with Newcastle. It kind of follows suit that sooner or later they'll get involved with one of the American franchises, particularly one of the more salubrious and celebrated ones like Miami, which has someone like David Beckham at its core.
Superb. Now, Peter Tatchell, we're going to let you go. We know you've got a busy day ahead. Are you expecting any trouble today at the Qatar embassy? No. Are you hoping for a nice civilised debate? Absolutely. A peaceful protest, but a protest with a strong passion to support those many brave Qatari people who do want democracy and human rights. We are supporting their struggle. We are on their side. Peter Tatchell, keep fighting the good fight. Thanks, mate.